What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to another video. I wanted to make a video on the mangrove tank today. I feel like there's not a ton of information out there on keeping mangroves in aquariums. I've done a bit of research trying to find articles and YouTube videos, and although there are a few creators out there that have very well successfully kept mangroves, and of course the OG Julian Sprung, who kind of seems like he pioneered this, or at least has all of the kind of like first online information about keeping mangroves. I wanted to talk about my two secrets, not so secrets, but two hacks at keeping mangroves successfully, at least from my experience. And I kind of had a rough start to it, I guess. The start was actually not the problem. It's when I clipped the top leaves to promote horizontal branch growth is where I started to get some issues. So as you guys can see, we are starting to get finally some branch growth and some new leaves up top, but the journey was not smooth. So let's kind of talk about it and what made it an easier transition into finally getting some branch growth. So I bought these mangroves at the size of this propagule right here, which this is a relatively new purchase. I've had them for about maybe a month now, and it was on a little like suction cup mount kind of thing on the back, and we just recently lowered the water level and kind of pushed up some more substrate here in the center so that we could plant him down and let those roots start getting some nutrients. So these two mangroves here started out at that size, and as you guys can see, they're about double the height now with a lot more leaves and the branches. So when I first bought those, I had them each in their own aquarium just with sand, and I had an aquarium light, something like this, not as powerful and not the same spectrum, but I had a saltwater aquarium light to light them up, and that worked okay as they were just young juvenile propagules, and they did sprout a few leaves off of that light and just the substrate that I had them in. But after about a year, we ended up putting them both into a 20-gallon tank with a dedicated plant grow light, but it again wasn't the correct spectrum, and I don't think it was bright enough. It was only about, I think, like 14 watts or something like that, so kind of just a basic LED plant light, if you will. I got it from Home Depot, and again, it did okay for the plants. They were still somewhat growing leaves, definitely slowed down in growth since they were these young small propagules down here, but the roots were still growing, getting good root structure, and again, getting some leaves. But after I moved out of that apartment and into this one, we put them into a 6-gallon Pico Lagoon tank, and that's kind of where they started to take a turn for the worse. So we had these trees in the 6-gallon lagoon with, again, just aragonite sand. We had the same plant grow light that was over them from the beginning, and then we decided to clip the tops of the trees. So if you don't know, to promote branch growth, you're supposed to clip the leaves up top. Now, I don't know what happens in nature for these trees to get branch growth, but from a very successful mangrove keeper, I reached out and he said to clip the tops. And that's exactly what I did. As you guys can see there, there's the cut. And usually between the cut and these nodes, which is where the two little leaves come out of, you're supposed to get some new branch growth, and cutting it is supposed to promote that. So that's what we did, and after that the trees just started declining. So I don't know if it was because of the actual cut is what shocked them, or if there was not enough nutrients for them to start promoting branch growth after the cuts, but we lost, I want to say, 4 leaves each tree. We had 2 on the bottom, I think 2 up top. So yeah, I think we lost about 4 leaves, which was about half of the leaves that were on the trees. And again, I know these are slow growing plants. They're trees, not plants, so they're slow growing. And maybe the leaves falling off and it taking this long to grow the branches is just part of the process, but I was concerned. I thought the trees were dying. And then eventually we started dosing some Chaeto Grow because I thought the trees needed iron. I wasn't sure on these supplements and the nutrients that they needed to grow, so we started kind of just playing around with different things. and one of them was adding Chaeto Grow. And in that 6-gallon mangrove lagoon tank, we had a crazy algae outbreak, and that prompted me to set up this aquarium here. So with the 6-gallon lagoon that we had, there was a ton of algae. I kind of just wanted a restart, and there was two things that I wanted to upgrade so that I would give these trees a better chance at thriving and not just surviving. So the first thing was upgrading the lighting. So we're using an Illumagic Pixel. This is, I want to say, their aquascaper. If not, it's one of the freshwater lights, of course. So it's supposed to be like a plant grow light is the spectrum, and we've got it mounted only maybe 3 or 4 inches above the tallest tree, and it's on this wire mount here. So once they grow taller, we can of course raise the light. I did want 2, but I think 1 for now is okay. Now that we have this propagule down here, it might be worth looking into getting a second one and kind of reconfiguring the mount. But we've got that light up top, and that's part of the secret sauce that I found, is having a really strong light with the correct spectrum is crucial. And I've heard that time and time again from the little information that's out there, is you need a dedicated light for these plants, and not just any plant grow light to put over these, but you need something with high intensity and the correct spectrum. So upgrading the lighting was a huge difference in the growth of these trees. And the second thing we did, of course, aside from setting up a completely new tank, this is an Aqueon 6-gallon. We were ultimately just going to grow these in a tote with substrate and a light over top and no filtration, and have them growing in just kind of like a tub. But I figured we've come such a long way in growing these trees that we should still display them in a somewhat aesthetic looking fashion. So we set up this tank. We've got a small little nano filter on the back just to cause some surface agitation and clear up the water. And then we've got a nice little Amazon stand, and of course the light up top. So super simple. I wanted a low tech, low equipment setup, and something that we could just focus solely on the mangrove. So the second thing that we did to really kick off the growth of these trees was adding a nutrient rich substrate. So it may just look like we have aragonite sand in there, which of course we do as the topper, but these little black specks down there, and it's, I think on this side you're not gonna be able to see it, but we've got about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of fluval stratum on the bottom, which is a freshwater substrate, but it's really good for, of course, growing freshwater plants. And mangroves can grow in brackish and freshwater. So we decided to put fluval stratum as the nutrient substrate, and then just top it off with the aragonite. And those two things, in my opinion, at least from what I can see on the growth, have done really good things for the mangroves. So just recently, I would say probably in the past 2 months, we've finally started to get these branches growing here. We've got only one growing on the top on each of the trees, so one up there but not on the other side, but it has 2 branches there. And then for this one on that side, but then 2 on the bottom as well. So kind of weird how it's growing like that, but I'm happy that it's growing nonetheless, so I can't really complain. But having that high intensity, correct spectrum light with some sort of nutrients, I think it's better to have nutrients in the substrate rather than the water column, if that makes any sense. Like, instead of dosing nutrients into the water, I think it's better to have a substrate that has it in it, because I think through the roots it's going to get that nutrients easier or quicker. I'm not exactly sure, but from my experience, these two things have really done it. If you guys have any questions or want any more topics covered on the mangroves, at least from my experience, I am nowhere near an expert, but there's definitely people online that you can check out on Instagram, like Inland Reef, that know how to grow these things like the back of their hand. But just let me know if you guys have any questions or want any topics covered. I'd be more than happy to share any information I can. But with all that being said, I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.